Am I the asshole for not paying to change my father's gravely insulting gravestone? My father and mother had a very bitter marriage. Towards the end of his life, he had a long-running affair with another married co-worker and got her pregnant before he passed. He was planning to leave Mum, skip the country, and move to Canada to start a new life with her. They had a house picked out and all. He had moved out and was living with his co-worker when he suddenly died of a heart attack while having sex. Divorce papers were never filed, no legal separation, they were in the process of moving all things legal. But on paper, they were still happily married. Now, me and my siblings are already out of home. Our youngest sibling is 19 and is in college. I work for a tech company and I'm currently back in my hometown helping my mum manage his estate. Well, my mum was hurt and petty and marked his gravestone as in loving memory of John Doe, son, husband, father, and adulterer. My dad's family and his pregnant partner are mad and want me to fix it. I personally think it's fine. That's who he was. He was all of those things, and since it's my mum's plot, I can't do anything. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, NatureWoman22 says, I would die, no pun intended, if I was walking through a cemetery and saw that. Your mum is an icon, not the asshole. I hope she burns his old shirts or something. Also, while going through estate papers and talking to lawyers, ask about what rights the side piece will have in claiming money for her kid, since it was your dad's kid too, just so you're all prepared. And OP replies, side piece is currently 9 months pregnant, about to pop any day. My mum has lawyered up, and since my dad died interstate, according to our state laws, everything goes to mum. Mum won't leave anything for the side piece. She's going to leave it for us once she passes. Not the asshole. Quote, and since it's my mum's plot, I can't do anything. So, it's not even your drama. Quote, my dad's family and his pregnant partner are mad and want me to fix it. Stay out of it. Tell them to talk to your mum. And OP replies, they want me to convince my mum to fix it. My dad's family have tried talking to her, but she has stopped taking their calls. Just say, there's nothing I can do. My mother owns the headstone and she's given you the answer, and then don't answer anymore. Not the asshole. It's a bit petty on your mother's part. Personally, I wouldn't have paid for a stone at all, but that's her business, I guess. I would have gone with the cheapest option possible. Probably cremation and mail the box of ashes to the other woman to do whatever with. And OP replies, my mum is into Eastern philosophy and believes cremation is very ritualistic and has spiritual significance behind it. She didn't want to take part in that. She never held a funeral or a memorial though, so she didn't really spend much eventually. And someone replies to that, when my stepfather killed my mother, he died of an aneurysm 2 weeks before his trial was to start. As a result, thanks to state law, his estate, which included half of my mother's property, went to his sister as next of kin. So since I had to send half of my mother's money to her killer's sister, I had him created and shoved the box of ashes in with the rest of the estate goods in the mail. Let her deal with his remains. Petty, I know, but sometimes a person dies before real karma can kick in, so we have to make our own. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for telling my in-laws exactly where my husband was when I was in labor? I gave birth to my son 10 weeks ago. I went through an exhausting period while I was nearing my due date. I was experiencing discomfort and wanted my husband by my side when I go into labor, but he'd go out every night to hang out at his friend's place and watch football games. I suggested that he play/watch games at home, just in case, but he was having none of it and said that he had to attend a game night at his brother and friend's place, along with his buddies. He said they had certain, how can I describe it, rituals when watching a game, and he can't enjoy doing it at home or anywhere else. The night of our son's birth, my water broke while my husband was at his buddy's place watching a game. I called him and told him to get home and take me to the hospital. He said he was coming, but he didn't, and I ended up calling my sister, as she lives nearby, and she took me to the hospital. My husband showed up 2 hours later after he kept calling asking if I was still in labor and that he was almost done watching the game. He was able to make it on time for our son's birth, but I was furious with him, mad and disappointed. He apologized profoundly and has been working on regaining my trust and respect for him after what he's done. He's otherwise very supportive and involved in our son's care. Last night I was at my in-laws' house for dinner and we were talking about my son's birth date. My husband suddenly started recalling what happened that night and basically started lying about driving me to the hospital, waiting and feeling stressed out, and standing on his feet for so long without food or even water. I was confused and I said no, none of this was true, none of this happened. In fact, he was watching a game when I went into labor, and I wanted him to drive me to the hospital, but he didn't show up until 2 hours later. My mother-in-law, who takes no crap from anybody and whom everyone fears, lost it on him, yelling and asking him if that was true, and he kept quiet. She started berating him left and right, telling him to sit down and shut up when he stood up to argue, then told him to stand up when he was sitting arguing. Everyone was laughing at how she basically treated him as if he was a boy in trouble. She kept saying, "Shame, shame, shame on you. This is not how I raised my children to treat their wives. Jordan, you are a disgrace, and I'm disappointed because of what I heard about you." He literally swallowed every bit of his mother's berating and didn't say anything until we got home, where he went nuts, saying I made him look like a neglectful, bad husband and father by telling the family about where he was, and said I shouldn't have said anything. But I argued that it wasn't okay for him to lie and play hero in front of his parents. He said that I just caused a rift between him and his family and asked if I was happy now. Am I the asshole? Should I have not said anything? Edit to say that he has done similar things in the past, since he is a major enthusiast of football and hockey, but I didn't expect it to get to that. Also, this is not our first baby together. We have a 4-year-old son. Now in the comments, Are You Falcon Kidding says, "Not the asshole. Your husband thought a football game was more important than you being in labor. He looked like a neglectful husband and father because he was being neglectful. If he wants people to think better of him, then he should change his behavior. Yelling at you shows that he's not sorry and would rather blame you than accept the consequences of his actions." And OP replies, "Yes. Saying I caused a rift really struck a nerve in me since I love my in-laws and treat them as my own family. My mother-in-law is a stand-up woman with a big heart. She treats me as a daughter to her, and so I thought keeping her in the dark about what truly happened was not wise, especially since she always tells me to come to her for help and advice." And someone replies to that, "Nah, do not cover for his bad behavior. If he doesn't want his mum to be pissed at him for acting like an asshole, he should not act like an asshole. It's that simple, really. What he did was totally wrong, and it was good that you called him out. Maybe he will think twice before behaving this way next time, not the asshole." I find it weird that he thinks that accurately describing his behavior makes him look neglectful, but he doesn't seem concerned with whether he actually is being neglectful. Excellent point. He's more focused on how he appears to others than how he really is as a husband and father. I wonder how his game-watching buddies would have reacted if he'd told them, "Oh, by the way, my wife's in labor and wanted me to be with her, but hey, I have my priorities and she's not on the list." I like to think that at least one of them would have told him to get his tail to the hospital ASAP and forget the damn game. Sippy Cup says, "Wow, just wow, not the asshole. Husband is absolutely 100% an asshole for 1, not driving his wife to the hospital when she went into labor, 2, waiting until the game was over to get to the hospital, and 3, lying about it to his family. This would honestly make me question divorce. This is bad. At the very least, marriage counseling would be a must." And OP replies to that, "His argument was that my sister's house was 15 minutes away and thought that she'd take me, then he would follow." And Sippy Cup replies, "Except that is not your sister's baby, it's his. He should have been there for you every step of the way." Edit, and he didn't just follow, he waited for the game to end before following. That is disgusting behavior for a husband and father. He also didn't say to her, "Your sister is closest, get her to grab you and I'll follow," like a normal human being would when they expect someone else to take you. He just ghosted until she had to call her sister. That's the part that gets me the most. Why wouldn't he take action? If he had done that, him finishing the game, while still a crappy thing to do, would have been a hell of a lot better than acting like he didn't give a crap. Instead, he just does nothing but call to make sure he can finish his game. He's screwed up thinking that that is acceptable when he should be with her the entire time. The whole thing was about him, not his wife, who could have even died giving birth if things went south. And our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for drinking whiskey in the office at 10:30 in the morning?" I, 38 male, work a stressful job in finance. After years of climbing my way up the corporate ladder, I finally became a VP at my firm, which comes with its own office. I consider myself a classic kind of guy, and one of the things I admire most about the workplaces of the 1960s, think Mad Men, etc., is that the characters always had a jar of whiskey in their hands no matter what time of the day it is. Back when I worked the trading floor, it would have been uncouth to do such a thing in front of my colleagues, but I figured that no one would care about it now that I have my own office. I recently purchased some whiskey jars and a premium bottle like 500 plus, which I store openly on my desk. I work with some high-end clients and I'll always offer them a glass when we have important meetings. Unfortunately, none of them have ever accepted. So, not wanting to let the whiskey go to waste, I've started sipping on a couple of glasses myself throughout the day, sometimes as early as 10:30 a.m. That was until yesterday morning, when one of my bosses, the CTO, burst into the office unannounced and caught me sipping. He looked shocked, turned his back, and left. At this point, the bottle was about half empty, so it probably looked pretty bad to him. Although I must add that this was consumed over the course of a whole week, I was drinking slowly enough that it didn't affect my work in any way. He then sent me a long email about how I have a problem and that he's going to contact HR. In the heat of the moment, I sent him a reply telling him that maybe he needs a glass or two to lighten up. I'll admit to being the asshole for that part. I'm scheduled to speak to HR tomorrow and I'm crapping it. Reddit, am I really the asshole for sipping whiskey privately in my office? Now in the comments, Muted Kiwi says, "Yes, you're the asshole." Red, "You're the alcoholic." I'm not just an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic who longs for the bygone times when being an alcoholic was sexy. OP, I don't think hiding your drinking is the solution that you're looking for. Anyone who thinks Don Draper is a character to emulate is an idiot, and I'm willing to bet nowhere near as attractive as John Hamm. OP's childish obsession is what gets me. He's nearly 40 years old and a VP, and yet he's sad that he can't LARP as some alcoholic arsehole he saw in a TV show. The dead giveaway for him should have been that no one took him up on the offer of alcohol. They were probably horrified. How do you work your way that far up the corporate ladder and never notice that the things they did on Mad Men are pretty frowned upon nowadays? Booster Gold says, "You're the asshole. Not only are you unprofessional, but that email response is going to put a great deal of fuel on the fire. In my experience, this is just not a common thing and is actively looked down upon today, if not outright restricted. Even as innocently as you think it is and as you present it, drinking alone at 10 a.m. on the job smacks of alcoholism. It is entirely possible that you get fired due to that email reply. They smack secretaries on the arse in Mad Men. You gonna imitate that too? I'm sure he wishes he could. So classic. Right up there with lung cancer and being found dangling from your office door with a fresh resignation letter in your pocket. This post would beg a belief if I didn't personally know a guy in college who saw The Wolf of Wall Street and thought that it was aspirational. What a shock. He was also in finance. Am I the asshole for applauding my neighbor's nighttime activities? A few nights ago, my wife and I were woken up by the neighbors in the apartment above ours very explicitly and loudly trying to expand their family. They must have been going at it for an hour, and it was fairly frustrating as I had work the next day. After they were done, I played an applause track through my Bluetooth speaker held up to the ceiling to try and make them aware of the relative thinness of the floor. I found out today that they have reported me to the management for harassment. So Reddit, am I the asshole? No, I think these people just have incredibly thin skin. If they're going to be clapping cheeks, you might as well be clapping hands for such an impressive performance by them. They should honestly be honored that you would applaud their performance. I don't see what the problem is. Not the asshole. Now in the comments, Flurble123 says, not the asshole. I think I would have done the same thing, while the other half would have been doing his best Mortal Kombat finish him impression at the top of his lungs. Yeah, this isn't r/legal advice, so I can confidently say you did nothing wrong. Legally, it's ambiguous, but you're definitely not an asshole for it. Part of living in shared dwellings is being respectful of other people, but the other part is understanding that people don't have to be. I had downstairs neighbors in an apartment for years that loved morning sex when they'd wake up for work, at around 5 a.m., and I'm the type to sleep late, 8 a.m. Every time they'd wake me up, I'd play the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack full blast until they stopped. Not the asshole. How do they know you were applauding them? You could have been applauding your own bedroom efforts, which had been drowned out by their noise. The only reason they would have to report OP is that they knew they were loud enough for OP to hear and thus associate the applause with their activities. And if they were knowingly being loud enough for the neighbors to hear, then they'd likely be found to be the harassers and not the harassed. So they effectively reported themselves to management. Well done. Seriously, their only basis for harassment is, we heard applause. You could absolutely say they sexually harassed you by exposing you to their activities without your consent. This is why I loved our last apartment complex we lived in before we bought our house. Good insulation, and could not hear neighbors at all. Had a party, no noise complaints whatsoever. Very faintly heard neighbors getting it on once, and due to how well built the apartments were, it sounded like it was pretty far off. It was our next door neighbors. Pretty easy to ignore. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for signing off on a professional email with Assalamu alaikum? So I've worked at my current job for almost 3 years. It's a smaller company with less than 100 employees, scattered across a handful of regional offices. Because I work with people in different offices quite a bit, a lot of my communication is via email. There is one person in particular who I work with who has a habit of signing off on emails with, God bless you. He will also find ways to put Bible quotes and scriptures into his emails that I find rather inappropriate for work. I have never been a religious person, but I was raised by Muslim parents and I have nothing against it, and believe that people should have every right to practice their religion as they see fit. But I also believe that religion shouldn't be forced down anyone's throat, especially in the workspace. After about 6 months at my job, I brought it up to my boss about my coworker's email habit. He said he's aware of it and doesn't agree with it either, but it's a different office, and the manager of that office thinks it's okay and I should just try to ignore it. So that's what I did. I bit my tongue and tried to ignore it. For almost 2 more years, I ignored it, until one day this particular coworker added some scripture to an email that he sent me after I told him I was having a rough day. I understand he was just trying to be helpful in his own way, but it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't have the patience for it anymore. So I wrote him an email and copied my boss and his office manager on it, explaining that while I appreciate the sentiment, I would prefer if he refrained from including any religious material in any and all future correspondence. It was a very professional email, succinct and to the point, but also very clear in what I was trying to communicate. I then signed off on the email with Assalamu alaikum. Not even 10 minutes later, I was called into my boss's office. He asked me what the hell I was doing mocking someone else's religion like that. I told him I wasn't mocking anything. I was simply conveying to a coworker in writing that I would prefer to keep religion out of our future correspondence. He said that it sure as hell seemed like I was mocking my coworker's Christianity by using a Muslim saying in the email. I asked him if he even knew what that phrase meant, and he said he didn't. So I told him it means peace be unto you. I told him if he thinks it's okay for someone to say God bless you in every email, it should be okay for me to say Assalamu alaikum as well. He told me to leave his office and get back to work. A couple days later, there was a company-wide email put out by the CEO outlining new email policies regarding religion, politics, and other personal views. It very clearly laid out that none of that kind of personal viewpoints should be included in any company email, no exceptions. Shortly after the email was sent out, my Christian coworker sent me a text to my personal phone that simply said, "I hope you're happy, asshole." Now in the comments, Old Advice says, "Not the asshole." And how very Christian of them to send that text. Shows you their true colors. Amazing how quickly the ban was implemented for the Islam text. Really shows the company's true colors too. Religion is fine so long as it is Christian. Edit, not the asshole. I want to like this twice, me too, and I'm an atheist. People are all about religious freedom until it's not their religion. Someone replies to that, that's only the Christians who read a Bible they made themselves out of scriptures that they think will justify them hating and judging others when the Bible clearly states to love all and judge none. If you look for a church or come across one, if you don't feel warm and welcomed the second you enter, the energy isn't it. I was raised in the church, and I believe because no one pushed their beliefs on me or tried to chastise me, because they know that none of us are perfect and that you can't judge someone just because they aren't the same as you. I thought every church was loving and accepting like mine, but when I got older, I realized I'm just lucky to live in an area where everyone is respectful and loving and accepting no matter what people's beliefs are. They choose to ignore people based off of how they treated them, not who or what they like. And to cheer all the sad people up, I saw a butterfly today. Think Cow 83 says, not the arsehole. As I like to say, religion is like a penis. It's okay to have one, it's okay to be proud of it, it is not okay to shove it down people's throats unless they ask you to. And not the arsehole. They never should have allowed him to include Bible verses. Their reaction to what you just said shows their pro-Christian bias and Islamophobia. Everyone sucks here. You never brought it up to said coworker until you sent that email to him. If you were trying to be professional, you should have sent the email asking him to stop without doing it yourself. If he continued after that, I think it is fair game. Your boss already told you he doesn't agree with it and doesn't like it, but he has no control over the employee in question. I think he was a bit much with claiming that you were mocking the other person's religion, but I can definitely see how he would feel that way considering you already told him that it bothered you, and then you proceeded to do it to prove a point. The other employee is an asshole for sending you that text. It was completely unnecessary. Out of curiosity, why didn't you directly talk to the coworker first? This is the comment I was looking for. It's absolutely within his right to send the email requesting that religion be kept out of emails, but to literally sign that email with an example of what you're requesting be removed is a bit hypocritical. Even if it was just to prove a point, it was unnecessary and it would have been more professional to leave it out. However, the coworker's response and the private text are completely uncalled for. He shouldn't be this butthurt that a company now has a, usually standard, no religion in the workplace policy. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for billing my boyfriend and not caring if the providers sue him if he doesn't pay? I, 26 female, have been in a relationship with my boyfriend, 28 male, for a year. He is an artist. That is to say that he feels like Picasso while venting his frustrations from a full-time job at a bank, as an accountant in a canvas, while I am a biomedical engineer. As such, I have a toolbox in the house that I bought for household repairs and the like, while another bigger toolbox sits in my room. We don't live together, filled with my very expensive and specialized tools that I use for work. Specifically, I work at a hospital, installing, maintaining, and repairing the big machinery used in diagnostics. I must remark that this tool cannot just be bought at a hardware store, as a lot of them are machine-specific or brand-specific, and that I must use them to maintain the insurance and guarantee of these machines. It has never bothered me that he uses common house things to add to his canvas, as he has never taken anything that wasn't already on its way to the bin or donation. But one day, I got back from work and he is in the house, in my backyard, flinging paint at a canvas with some weird shape stuck to it. At first, I didn't know what he had pasted on there until I saw my toolbox dumped by his feet, and a lot of the tools just strewn all around. The tipping point came when I saw my oscilloscope broken apart and glued to the monstrosity in the yard. That thing alone cost me $750, let alone the rest of my ruined tools. I saw red. I don't even remember what I said to him, only that he ran away and was actually crying, full on bawling. I had no time, nor the patience to deal with that, so I took inventory of what he ruined and talked to my boss to see what I could do. Non-electric or simple tools like special screwdrivers. How he ruined a screwdriver, I have no idea. Clamps, measuring tools the hospital will replace at no cost, but the other ones like the oscilloscope and a few other electric tools, I had to replace myself. I looked for the exact tools that I had before, and it came up to $1,876 to replace everything. I checked with a family member who is a lawyer, bought all the replacements, and sent the bill to my boyfriend. Well, his mum called me screaming, saying how could I do this to her baby, and how he doesn't have the money to pay for it. I know for a fact he does. I told her that if he doesn't pay, the provider will sue him, and so will I, and then just hung up. Not 10 minutes later he called. He was crying and screaming, so I just left the phone next to me and continued to work. When I didn't hear the ruckus from the phone, I picked it up again, being noisy in the actions, so he realized that I didn't listen to a word he said, and asked if he was done throwing a tantrum. He hung up. I felt justified at the moment, but I was telling this to a coworker, and he said I was too harsh, but I did what I had to do to continue my work. If he wanted to paint tools, there was another toolbox with cheaper stuff in the kitchen. He knows my toolbox is more expensive, so why? I don't understand. So Reddit, am I the asshole? Now in the comments, Rainbow Dreaming says, not the asshole. Too harsh? He disrespected you and your possessions and clearly thought he would get away with it. P.S. I think you mean ex-boyfriend. Right? This dude has no boundaries, no respect for other people or their belongings. Not the asshole, dodged a bullet. Wasn't really dodged though, was it? Took one real good hit to the toolbox. Toolbox acted as a shield. If someone took anything of mine to use for some paint project without my permission, I would raise hell. It doesn't matter if I was planning on binning it, they still need to ask. The audacity to take his girlfriend's tools, even if it had been the cheap, non-important ones, is astounding. The audacity to take the tools his girlfriend needs for her job and destroy them for his art. Good on OP for not backing down on this. And really, she did the exact right thing. Why can't he destroy his own crap for his art or his mummy's? If he keeps whining, I hope OP takes photos of his vandalism and presses charges for breaking and entering as well as destruction of property. Whatever happens, I hope we get an update. Someone else says, not the asshole. Your boyfriend is behaving like a 10-year-old, not a responsible adult. No way he should have taken any of your stuff without asking, let alone expensive tools that you need for your job. And what 28-year-old needs to go running to mummy because their partner calls them out on bad behavior? Sounds like you need to ditch him and look for an adult boyfriend. Not the asshole. He probably did this on purpose because he has some insecurities about your job or the money you make, / your level of education or intelligence. Sue him if he doesn't pay and dump his ass. This is what I'm thinking too. His behavior reminded me of something I've read about abusers who, when going on a rage fit, they only break their partner's things and never their own things. It doesn't sound like OP's ex-boyfriend has ever been violent, but clearly he premeditated this, and the likelihood that he did it out of spite/jealousy against OP is pretty goddamn high. And OP replies, "I'm not a violent person. Only 3 times in my life have I gotten in a fight, and it was in another's defense. But my mum raised no wilting flower. I made it very clear that if he ever raised a hand to me, I would pay it back twice as hard. And he knows I can knock him out. He's seen me spar." I think that might have frustrated him. He's not violent, but brusque. Is that a word? Rough? Something like that. And I was living with my parents when we started dating. I think he might have felt slighted when I started doing well and he was stuck at the bank. But such is the nature of my work. Specialized machines come with specialized maintenance and thus a bigger paycheck. Honestly, at this point, I'm just disappointed in him. He wasn't like this at the beginning. I haven't broken up with him yet, but I guess it's unavoidable. Something my grandmother told me feels very relevant here. When a man punches a wall, it's because he wants you to know that that wall could have been you. He is destroying your stuff because he wants to hurt you, even if it isn't physically. It is a threat. Unexposed post is titled, "Am I the asshole for kicking my husband's sister out for leaving a fake pregnancy test in my bedroom?" My 33 husband, Adam 36, came back from his month-long trip days ago. My in-laws live states away, and my sister-in-law, 20, was staying with me since she got kicked out of her dorm. Adam and I got back from the airport at 7 p.m, and my family came to visit. Adam went inside the bedroom and started unpacking while I was in the kitchen with my mother. I suddenly heard Adam shouting my name, and he told me to come upstairs ASAP. He sounded very angry. I went to meet him in the bedroom, and I saw him holding a positive pregnancy test in his hand. I was dumbfounded. He began questioning me, saying he found it inside my sock drawer. He asked, "You gonna explain to me what the hell this was doing there?" I was speechless from my shock as I understood what this might have looked like to him. I said I had no idea. It wasn't mine and I'd never seen it before. He kept telling me to explain how it got there if I have never seen it and it wasn't mine. My family heard the commotion and tried to intervene, but Adam locked the door. I freaked out because I literally had no idea what was going on. Adam said he just wanted me to be honest. I said he had the right to be mad, but I knew nothing about it and had no explanation. He said mad doesn't even begin to cover it, and then started suddenly putting everything back in his bags, saying he was going to stay with a friend till I came up to him with an explanation. He unlocked the door and found my family waiting. His sister showed up, asking what was going on, and then started laughing, asking, "So was it really positive or not?" I was stunned as she proceeded to say that she planted the pregnancy test in the drawer as a prank and that everyone should calm down. She was like, "Bruh, chill. Have you ever heard of a fake pregnancy tests? They're pretty telling." I was livid. I screamed at her, asking how she thought this was funny and that it was okay to humiliate me in front of my family. She tried to justify it by saying it was her boyfriend's, who has ASPD by the way, AITA, to bring laughter to the atmosphere. But I told her she was no longer welcome at my home after what she did. Adam took a seat to calm down, watching us argue as my mum got involved, asking me to take it easy. I insisted that my sister-in-law pack and leave right then, and she started crying and apologizing, saying she had nowhere to go and begging Adam to do something, but he didn't. I called her an Uber and told her that she had to leave. Mother-in-law heard and started calling me, shaming me for kicking her daughter out like that. I told her what her daughter did, and she still said my reaction was over the top, as her daughter is being naive and is a kid acting recklessly. She said we're her family, and I should consider taking her back, but I said I won't. Edit, I too was confused by Adam's reaction, and have a feeling that he was in on the prank too, based on how serious he was being. Mum thought the same thing, and I wouldn't be surprised since A, he remained quiet when I argued with his sister, and B, he always does pranks with her and sees nothing wrong with her behavior. He actually thinks she's funny. I don't know if I'll ever be sure about him taking part in her prank. And edit, Adam and I struggle with infertility on his side because of his health issues. So that added to my anger since it seemed like his sister was being cruel and insensitive. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might have gone too overboard by kicking her out since she said that it was a prank and it wasn't really her idea. She had nowhere to go, and I think as her family I'm expected to help. Now in the comments, Terrasagus says, not the asshole. Also, quote, kicked out of her dorm room pretty much leads me to believe that sister-in-law isn't house-trained at all. And OP replies, to be frank, she didn't disclose the reason why she got kicked out of the dorm, but she said that it wasn't her fault. Huh, with people like this, it's never their fault. Info. I'm distinctly uncomfortable with your husband's reaction. It's hard for me to focus on what your sister-in-law did after reading how he treated you aggressively enough that your family came to intervene only for him to lock the door so they couldn't. That matters far more in terms of bad behavior than what your sister-in-law did. Though yes, that was asshole behavior. Could you seriously take a moment to consider whether you're okay in that house and in that relationship? Because I'd be really concerned for anyone I knew who told me this story. I'm gonna latch on to the top comment here. OP, I think hubby was in on it and is a terrible overactor. Because you said he likes doing that crap with his sister, and also, why is he in your sock drawer to begin with? Then he saw how furious you were and was afraid to admit his part, so he stayed silent instead of joining the yelling. That's also why sister kept appealing to him. She wanted him to admit his part to ease her culpability, but she wouldn't rat him out. I was looking for this comment. I think he was in on it. There was no reason to be in her sock drawer. She needs to tell him that she knows he was in on it and she's leaving for a while. What they did wasn't funny, and he frightened her, locking her in the room and screaming at her. And she will never again be able to trust him because she won't know what's real. Unless he stops, goes to counseling, and promises never to prank anyone again on penalty of divorce, there is no hope for them as a couple. After reading the edits, literally everyone in this post is the asshole except for the OP. Husband is the asshole for his aggressive reaction and likely involvement, especially given the fertility struggles OP mentioned. Sister-in-law is the asshole for the prank itself, kicked out of dorm, kicked out of OP's house. What's the common denominator? And mother-in-law is the asshole for presuming that you have some kind of responsibility for housing her daughter. Is mother-in-law homeless? Does she not have a couch for sister-in-law? OP not the asshole. OP's mum sounds nice too. Not the asshole. Whoever would even think for a second that was funny? And OP replies, I don't know, but my in-laws including Adam see no issue with how my sister-in-law behaves. Moreover, they think her mentally unstable boyfriend has an influence on her character. I'd be rethinking my ties to this family right about now. You said in an edit that you can never be sure if he was in on the prank. That means you can never trust your husband to be honest with you, and cannot trust that he didn't lie to you so that he could scream at you for fun. Is this the marriage you want to be in? Am I the asshole for telling my daughter the truth about why I wasn't in her life? To start, my ex and I were 19 when she got pregnant. We had recently broken up, and she found out a couple weeks later that she was pregnant. She said she planned to get an abortion, but only wanted her sister there. So I was always under the belief that she had aborted. She only contacted me once, saying that it was done, and we didn't speak again. Fast forward 19 years later, I found out a month ago that that was a lie. My ex passed away 3 years ago, and my daughter Kara has been living with her uncle. He was the one to reach out to give me a heads up after she expressed an interest in wanting us to connect. He and I spoke at length because I was feeling some pretty strong emotions like rage for never being told about her. My ex had backed out of the abortion but didn't want me involved because we were broken up, so decided just not to tell me. But he told me that Kara doesn't know about that. Apparently I wasn't ready for fatherhood because we were both young, so I bailed. I couldn't believe it. Rob, her uncle, told me he knows his sister was wrong for that, but promised Kara doesn't have any negative feelings towards me and my ex never painted me as some villain, just a young guy who knew he couldn't properly care for her. He asked me not to tell Kara this when we talk if she asks, and because it could hurt the way that she saw her mom. I never actually confirmed I would. Kara messaged me and we've been talking. I've met her twice and it's been crazy emotional. Looking at this girl who looks just like me and hurting that we're just barely getting to know each other. So far, our conversations have only been about what her life was like, how my life is, what her wants and future goals are, and getting to know each other. We met again Tuesday, and she finally decided to ask the obvious questions about what made me not be involved. How did I feel? What went through my mind? Did I ever think about her? Etc. I had been thinking about what to do, but in that moment, I just didn't have it in me to lie, so I was honest. That I was told about the abortion, had no idea that she even existed until now, but that I still really want to be in her life and have the chance to be her father if she wants that. Kara was a bit emotional, we talked some more, and said that she still wants me involved. That night, my messages were blowing up. Not just from Rob, but her grandparents as well. They are all outraged for telling Kara about her mum because she yelled at all of them and is refusing to even take their calls. Yes, the lie was terrible, but I just ruined the image she had of her late mother for my own benefit. Rob called me a selfish dick for not taking it into consideration how this would affect Kara finding out about this. So right now I feel like crap. I get honesty is the best policy, but in this case, I don't know if I was an asshole for doing it. I'm still learning this whole dad business, so don't know if I dropped the ball here. In all honesty, it is not healthy for that lie to continue any further. From my point of view, the lie paints OP in a bad light, in that he knew she existed, but he just didn't want to contact her, he didn't think of her that entire time. I'm not so sure how well Kara feels about the ex never painted me as some villain, just a young guy who knew he couldn't properly care for her. In all honesty, I believe that Rob, the uncle, is lying there, and it's really doing Kara no justice to continue lies around her. By telling the truth, OP is showing that he can be trusted, that he genuinely had no idea, and that the family continues to lie to her and doesn't want her to know the truth about her situation. To me, that's wrong, and I'm gonna say not the asshole for telling the truth, OP. You did a good job. Now in the comments, AMSLove123 says, not the asshole. Your ex lied, your ex created this mess. I'm sorry she's passed, but she did this. You have no obligation to continue a lie that you had no part of. Your daughter deserved the truth. Exactly. OP, you were the victim of someone else's long-term lie. Your daughter's uncle tried to coerce you to continue a lie that would only serve to hurt you in favor of your daughter's mother. That is not fair to you. My advice is to keep your head down, avoid responding or stirring up more drama, and this too shall pass. Then you can continue building your own relationship with your daughter on your own terms, not the asshole. Sounds like Uncle Rob is upset that OP didn't think about how hard this would affect them. If they cared about Kara, they would have told her the truth when she expressed an interest in meeting him. It's unrealistic to expect a stranger to continue a lie which defames himself in order to protect the image of a liar. Yeah, poor Kara. Imagine losing a parent and thinking the other one wants nothing to do with you, only to find out they were never told about your existence. Absolutely heartbreaking. I can't imagine going through your whole life not having a dad, only to find out that you could have had one all along if your other parent hadn't lied about it. That thought just hurts my heart. And someone replies to that, my wife was 20 when she finally discovered the truth about her parentage. She'd been told her whole life that her biological father was her deadbeat stepfather who'd abandoned her when she was a kid. Lo and behold, her mother passed away and she left a note saying who my wife's real father was. A highly successful lawyer who was never told about the pregnancy and was overjoyed when he found out. He came to our wedding and goes out of his way to visit us, but both him and my wife hate that they had literally 2 decades of missed time. It really does suck when it happens. Cruntled Organizer says, you said fast forward 19 years later, so your daughter is 19 now. She's an adult and deserves to know the truth. You should not be expected to make yourself out to be a deadbeat dad just to avoid tainting the memory of her mother. Not the asshole. 19 years of this girl thinking her father didn't want to be her dad when her mother was the one who robbed her of the chance for OP to be involved in her life. Dying doesn't erase the actions of one's life. OP shouldn't have to hide the truth that tells his daughter that he didn't not care about her, he didn't know about her. And now on to the update. So I made this post a couple months back and I wanted to share what's been going on. This was a really big mess, and thank you for all of your reassurance, for telling me that Kara deserved to know the truth. There was still some guilt I carried with me for days until she called me again, now that she had time to process. Kara thanked me for being honest about what happened, and we had a deep conversation about what she's going through. She and her mum always had a very strained relationship, even until she passed away. So there was still a lot of anger and resentment that she never got to have closure for. Now learning this new lie that her mum told her about me, well, it opened a lot of other mixed feelings. She has been in therapy even before her mother died to deal with her issues, so Kara is working this out with someone, which I'm happy to know. Many of you were suggesting therapy for her, so at least she already had that down. My daughter is still mad at her family. She talked to them a couple times before stopping communication. Kara knows she'll forgive them eventually, but for right now, she says she wants them to live with the consequences, so hasn't had any contact with them. I did express my concern over her shutting them out, but she says it's not forever. She's still trying to process this betrayal and get to a place where she'll accept them back into her life. At the moment, she's still living with her friend and wants to keep things that way. So far, has declined any financial help I offer. She wants to work out her anger and let them sit with this for a while. I had to do some blocking still for my own peace of mind. Things are a work in progress, but I'm happy to report that we're getting along fine. Kara's been over so many times and has met my fiancé. We are learning so much about each other, even if sometimes it's hard not to get emotional over childhood memories she talks about, knowing I couldn't be there for them. Still in the process of finding a therapist myself, because this has been pretty heavy on me too, and I still have no idea what the hell I'm doing as a parent. Thanks for your words of encouragement and all of the advice from fellow parents. I kept getting asked for an update on this, so sorry I took a while to remember to post something. Now in the comments, quote, still have no idea what I'm doing as a parent. Same buddy, same. I don't think any parent knows. Just go with the role. I think OP should also have a conversation with Kara about what she wants his role to be as her father. Not that I think he would, but if he goes in thinking, oh, now I'm a dad, I have to give her advice and guidance, it might not be well taken. She doesn't have a foundational relationship with him yet, and she's a grown adult. I get mad enough when my mum tries to mum me, and she's been in my life the whole time. This so much. I didn't really know my dad until I was 20. Different circumstance though, my dad took a while to get sober. So I was about OP's daughter's age when I really started talking to my dad. And honestly, as much as it sucks that he wasn't there when I was younger, the relationship we have now is very special and unique. He could never treat me like I'm still a kid since he had never really dealt with me as a kid. So my dad never tries to parent me, he only tries to help. Which I appreciate over my mum who can be difficult to please. Not that I love him more than my mum. Queen's Tower says, OP, I just wanted to share my experience with you. I found out about my biological father's existence when I was 19. It was a whirlwind. My mother is still alive, but had told me that my crappy stepfather was my bio dad my entire life. A family friend finally told me the truth, and I'm forever grateful, because I am certain my very toxic mother would never have admitted it to me on her own. Fast forward 9 years. I'm living in the same metro area as my real dad. I see him at least once a week for lunch. He's really close to my husband and a doting grandfather to my children. Things are really good. It's sad that we didn't get that time together when I was growing up. We are so much alike. but I feel like we've more than made up for it in recent years. Best of luck to you and your daughter." And OP replies, "Thank you for sharing. I'm so glad you and your father have such a wonderful relationship. Gives me so much hope for the future. All the best to you and your family. Sounds like you're all rich in love." Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to cook for my stepchildren anymore? They are 16 female and 15 male. My husband and I have been married for 8 years. They have been living with their mum for a month because we caught the virus. Fortunately, they were with their mum and didn't catch it. Normally, we split custody. Ever since they've returned home, they have been very critical of my cooking. My husband and I usually split chores. He makes the dinner and I make breakfast and lunch. This works for us as my work starts later in the morning while his shift ends earlier in the evening. I try to make them healthy food and spend time with them, but they have been nothing but critical. They make faces, make fun of the dishes I cooked, and compare them to their mum's cooking in a manner which is really hurtful. They have been talked to, and their father has even punished them. They just don't seem to care. My husband seems to think that my cooking is fine. Hell, they didn't seem to mind my cooking when he heated it up last week. So I stopped cooking for them. They know how to cook. I had taught both of them how to handle themselves around the kitchen last year, and they had no problem before this. I'm worried that they are lashing out over something hurtful I did. Teenagers are not known for their emotional maturity, and I fear this will further alienate them. But at the same time, my mental health has improved, and I do not dread mornings anymore. I still make them lunch, but I don't have to hear them talk smack about my cooking due to my schedule. My husband wants me to be the adult here, and he promises to deal with them. He thinks that if I start cooking again, they will calm down. The children are giving me the cold shoulder, and it hurts, but I want to teach them that they have to respect the people in their lives, even if they dislike them. They talked to their mum about it, and she ranted at me and called me names. My husband is making them breakfast now. They don't seem to mind that change. I had my peace with them not considering me family. I don't expect them to make me a Mother's Day card or call me mum. I never expected that. That would be amazing, but I know it's not going to happen. I'm okay with that. However, I just want them to treat me with respect. I understand that I am an adult in their lives who cares for them and loves them. They treat me like a servant who also pays for stuff. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I feel like I'm abandoning my duties as a parental figure and I'm proving them right, and I feel this is going to appear that I don't care for them. Now in the comments, Kalkiki says, quote, "They talked to their mum about it and she ranted at me and called me names. This is why they're treating you poorly. Your husband needs to have a sit down with his ex about bad-mouthing you to the kids. In my honest opinion, you're doing the correct thing. These are not young children, these are teenagers, and they damn sure know what they are doing. You don't need to put up with this treatment just because they're kids. They are rude, and their words and actions affect other people. Not the asshole." This, especially suspicious since things seem to have started up after they spent some time at their mum's, makes me wonder what might have been said while they were over there, especially since, if I'm reading your post correctly, everything seemed fine for 8 years. I doubt their mum was pulling out a full 4-course breakfast for them every day, and even if she was, they can't realistically expect someone else to do the same, so something is up. Not the asshole, you said they know how to cook, and if all else fails, they can always go for cereal or a sandwich. They won't starve, and you shouldn't have to put up with their criticism. Wait, people cook breakfast for their kids? Mine are 10, 9, and 7 and make their own breakfast. Waffles, cereal, whatever, and have for a while. Time for these kids to get a reality check and do some growing up. Not the asshole. Oh my god, they're 15 and 16 and someone else cooks them breakfast and makes their lunches? You and your husband are teaching them to remain children instead of becoming adults. It's great that you taught them their way around the kitchen, and no one should be making them breakfast except themselves, especially with their entitled attitude. They are acting like toddlers, and your husband is enabling them. You are not the asshole for setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. And now on to the update. I made my post I think 2 weeks ago, and a lot has happened. I realized that I was not an asshole for not cooking for them. I continued to not cook for them, and they continued to ignore me. It was hurtful, but I was getting used to it. I talked to my husband about enforcing rules and talking to their mother to ensure that we can solve this issue, but he's reluctant to start drama because he's afraid of going back to the court and having to change the custody agreement. However, all this took a backseat. My father received a very bad diagnosis. It's pretty bad. It sent me into a very bad place, and I was just getting by on autopilot for a week. My stepdaughter walked in on me crying in my room. I think she was looking for her dad. She sat next to me and apologized. She teared up a little and told me that she's scared that I will force my dad to move them permanently to their mothers. That made me cry harder. I told her that even though we may not get on all the time, I always missed them when they were at their mothers, and the house would feel empty without them here. After this conversation, things are better now. I won't say we're doing fine all the time, but we are doing much better than before. The people who guessed that their mother put them up to it were correct. After a bit more talking to my stepchildren, what I realized was that something we did really hurt them. My stepdaughter told me that we didn't call them when we were sick with the virus, but we did. In fact, we were frustrated that they didn't pick up, but we chalked it up to their mother's very strict screen time policy, where the phones are under her care and not with them, and them being busy with classes. We just resorted to texting them. My hypothesis is that their mother knew the passcodes, and she was deleting our missed calls when the phone was with her, and then using our lack of calls to drive a wedge between us. I have not told anyone about this theory, but it seems like a good theory. I have let this thing slide for now, as I'm more focused on helping my father with his treatment. I really want to thank everyone who commented. I know this is not a happy update, but I wanted to let people know what happened. Now in the comments, JMags9020 says, "Wow, I'm so sorry for you and your dad, but happy you seem to be on track with the stepkids. Their mother seems to be playing quite a role in this. It's really screwed up. I get so depressed when I read about all the crappy parents out there who use their kids as a weapon. Then you grow up and realize that almost everything you did or felt was manipulated by either parent trying to get back at each other and win. Like how my stepmom told me my ADHD diagnosis was just because my mum couldn't handle me, only for me to find out 8 years after leaving their care that I still have ADHD and should have been medicated the whole time. Damn, me too. It sucks being denied medication and dealing with people who dismiss it. It's like, who knows what you could have done and how different you would have grown up if you were allowed it. My grades went from failing to A's. It helped me with my almost non-existent executive functioning. I can even get up in the morning and not fall asleep all day everywhere. It's crazy." Further down, Nomad says, quote, that text messages part, "Show SD the missed calls and messages from your phones. That should convince her that both of you did try to contact them. And contact a lawyer and take X back to court. This is straight up parental alienation. Opie, talk to your husband first, but I have an idea. Show your kids your call records and texts that you sent when they were at their mums. They are teens. They are tech savvy enough to understand the timestamps and deletions. Tell them you are concerned they didn't get any calls or messages because you want to make sure they have reliable communication with you and their dad. If your theory is true, the kids will put 2 and 2 together and understand who is really the problem. If that's the case, it may be worth talking to a lawyer and revisiting custody. Besides the whole parental alienation thing, interfering with communication with a custodial parent is dangerous and not in the best interest of the kids. I'm sorry to hear about your dad, and I hope you're able to spend as much time with him and the kids as possible. This is a really good idea. Opie, I understand you don't want to add any fuel to the drama and your husband's worries, but I think the kids do need to understand what their mother is capable of. I'm sorry about your dad, Opie, and I hope it gets better for you both. Am I the asshole for not helping my ex after he left our business? I, female 29, met my ex B, male 29, in college and started a business right after our senior year. Our relationship often got toxic, but I think being business partners kept us together. Eventually, our business started having financial troubles. B comes from wealth, so I asked him to get a loan from his parents, which he agreed to. 2 months later, B suddenly asked for all the money back. We were always planning to pay it, but we had mutually decided on manageable installments, and I was not in a position to return all of it at the same time. B said his father was very sick, and since he was in retirement, his health insurance situation was tricky. This seemed particularly odd to me because 1, B didn't give me any details on the sickness, 2, he didn't let me call his mother because she was grieving and couldn't talk about finances, and 3, Mum had more than enough money to pay for his treatment. Every time I tried to investigate, he asked me to trust him, and that's what I did. Getting the money back was an ordeal. We had already invested all of it in the business, and I had to take some out and even give away all my personal savings. About 3 weeks after this, B called me to tell me that we had done. He also wanted out from the business, and the only other time that I saw him was with lawyers when we were dividing our business assets, and he was withdrawing his name from all the official documents. I was devastated. In addition to the emotional trauma, I had virtually no finances to fall back on and moved back in with my mother for a bit. I never heard from B, and after talking to some of our mutual friends who were on my side, I found out that B's father was not actually sick. I wasn't surprised. 5 years later, I never gave up on my business, and slowly it grew and helped me pay back all of my debts and live a comfortable life. I heard from some friends that both of B's parents passed away, but I didn't pay it much heed. In the midst of the lockdown, I got an email from B. I knew this was not going to be good, but I responded, guided by my curiosity to know what he did with all the money. His parents had cut him out of their will, and he had a child with a woman who abandoned them. He also got laid off because of COVID, and he told me that he was struggling to feed his son. He told me that since he was instrumental to the business foundation, he deserved a cut from it now that it was successful. When I asked him about the money, he said his parents were pressuring him, which I did not believe. They were always on board with his frivolous purchases and knew me well enough to tell me if they wanted it back. I consulted my lawyer, who said B had no legal claims to the business, but when I told my best friend about it, she said that she was appalled by the fact that I didn't give it a second thought, especially because he was responsible for the business idea, and his initial investment was twice as much as mine. She thinks I'm an asshole, so I'm here to find out. And my reply to that friend would be, actually, you're the asshole and you're an ignorant idiot if you really believe that. Get out of whatever cave you're living in and realize that he's just begging for money here and he deserves nothing. OP, you don't deserve to be gaslit from your friend over your ex's begging. That's never a good situation, but you're not the asshole for this one. Now in the comments, Honest Elk says, that's a clear not the asshole. Congrats to you for persevering with the idea long enough to make it a success. Exactly. Very clear not the asshole. No idea why any friend would suggest otherwise, actually. And OP replies, I met her through him. She says she's always liked me more and hasn't spoken to him since the debacle, but I don't know how true that is anymore. I mainly consulted her because she knew the entire story thoroughly, but now it seems like she has a massive conflict of interest. But you divided up the business, and presumably, as you had lawyers, there was an agreement in there. He chose to pull out of the business at that time and now has no claim to it. If the business went belly up, you couldn't make him liable for the debt, and he can't claim profit that he has no share in. Not the arsehole. Exactly this. So he deserves a cut if the business succeeds, but not if it fails. He made his bed, let him lie in it. Someone else comments, he lied about his father being sick. He's probably lying about the child. Do not let your friend guilt trip you. And OP replies, the guilt trip is spot on. My friend told me that since I struggled financially at some point, I should have empathy because he is in the same situation now. He hasn't changed, or he would have reached out to you to apologize at some point over the years. He is only reaching out because he wants money now. It's highly doubtful his parents didn't leave him money. He is a liar. If his son is hungry, there are tons of free programs for food during the pandemic. I get emails weekly from school kids about resources to free meals. And Chutson says, "Your best friend sucks. You are not the asshole. You don't owe your ex at all. You did the work, so you get to reap the rewards." And OP replies, "She usually tries to play the devil's advocate, but I think this time she took it too far." If she was playing devil's advocate, she'd just say, "Oh, he's broke and desperate, that's probably why he's asking," not, "I'm appalled you're not letting this mooch take advantage of you." And now on to the update. It's been some time since I posted this, but I wanted to thank all of you for steering me in a clear direction. The volume of responses was overwhelming, and I'm sorry for not getting back to all of you. Now for the update. My ex does really have a son, and I was able to verify this. I also found out that he wasn't cut out of his parents' will. The money simply just wasn't as much as he was expecting. Even though he did lose his job, he had a lot of fallback money. I also forgot an important detail in my first post. I recently did an interview in a local newspaper about my business, and my ex may have read that and found out that my business was doing well. Since he didn't need that money, my only explanation for why he reached out to me is that he felt entitled to my success and the money that I made. Now, about my friend. She admitted that he reached out to her before he emailed me. But later, after some coaxing, she told him that they had been speaking casually for some years. I'm not the most confrontational person, so I cut her out of my life, and yesterday, I found out through Facebook that they're engaged. Well, one last thank you. I am admittedly a gullible person, and you all helped me not get played. Now in the comments, quote, "Yesterday I found out through Facebook that they're engaged. Oh, this actually made me chuckle. Sounds like they deserve each other. Choo-choo, train wreck coming down the track. Congrats on the business success and in not getting sucked into their scam. Sounds like you've learned some valuable lessons without too much long-term damage." What a crappy friend, though. She wanted to coax OP into giving her future fiancé money. Yeah, a couple of con artists, those two. I really hope things go better for you, OP. I'm glad you got that toxicity out of your life. Stay safe, OP. Your ex and your ex-friend deserve each other. Congrats. I know, right? OP, you deserve a partner who will cherish and love you forever. I really hope you find that, be it a romantic or platonic partner. And OP says, "Thank you, kind internet stranger." Oof, sounds like you seriously dodged a bullet. Don't sweat it, OP. The trash will take itself out. It actually sounds like it already has. Your ex and ex-best friend deserve each other. Karma will catch up with them for the stunt they tried to pull. Congrats on your successful business. I hope it and you continue to prosper, and that you keep moving on to bigger and better things and relationships. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for not giving back my cousin's dog after babysitting it?" I, 21 female, have been watching my cousin's 29 female puppy for just about 2 months now. My cousin adopted the puppy, her name is Delilah, from the shelter 2-ish months ago. My cousin at the time was living in an apartment complex that didn't allow pets. My cousin was aware of this, but decided to get the dog anyway. Surprise, surprise, she gets in trouble with the building a few days after adopting Delilah. They tell her either the dog leaves or she moves out. My cousin talked to different members of the family and asked if anyone could watch Delilah while she looks for a new place to live. Nobody was able to take the dog in, so I offered to take her because I didn't want the poor thing to go to the shelter. I go to pick up Delilah, and my cousin doesn't have any supplies to give me. Just what is left of the dog food and her tags. Whatever. I take Delilah to where I'm living and get her settled. I go to the store and I get her a collar, leash, bed, new food, bowls, toys, etc. I'm spending my money, but I don't care, because I want this puppy to be happy and comfortable. A week passes, and then more weeks pass. My cousin doesn't communicate with me often. I try to check in with her, and she says she's working on finding a place. After several weeks, my cousin said she has found a new apartment to move into. She sends me the info to show me. It very obviously states that they do not allow pets. What the hell? I point this out to her, and she insists that they might change their mind since Delilah is so well behaved. I was the one who had to train her since she was living with me. I don't hear from my cousin for a while again. Here we are now, about 2 months later. I am absolutely best friends with this dog now. I love her more than anything. She's a quick learner and an absolute sweetheart. We've been on vet visits, I've been grooming her, spending my own money on everything she needs so I can take very good care of her, and my cousin contacts me a few days ago and says that she's ready to take Delilah back. She tells me about her living situation and that she's living with her boyfriend and his buddies at their place. To make a long story short, they aren't a good crowd, and I didn't think that it was a good idea for Delilah to live there. I told my cousin that I was sorry, but I felt uncomfortable sending Delilah there, and that I've been caring for her and spending all of my own money on her for 2 months, and frankly, I wanted to keep her. My cousin was disgusted with me and called me a lot of swear words which I will not be repeating. She hasn't spoken to me since, but hasn't made any attempt to get Delilah back either. I've been getting messages and calls from other cousins and aunts calling me a thief and saying I'm a horrible person. Am I the asshole for not returning the dog? Also, I'm not worried about legal trouble. My family wouldn't do that, and let's just say they don't have a good record with the law. Edit. My cousin has a track record of adopting animals and then sending them back to the shelter or just getting rid of them. I don't know what happens to them. She's been through multiple dogs and cats. This is why I am uneasy. Also, I would just like to point out that I have openly told my cousin I would like to keep the dog. I didn't say anything like, I'm keeping her and I don't care what you say, or anything like that. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I very well could be the asshole because I told her I would babysit her dog, but now I'm wanting to keep her. Now in the comments, LOL says, everyone sucks here. Your cousin sounds insufferable, trying to bend rules because she feels special, but at the end of the day, you agreed to watch over her dog and you're kidnapping the dog now, so that's clearly an asshole move. Honestly, in your place, I would eat being an asshole and hold on to the dog, with whatever fallout that might cause, but that's rough and might cause a lot of fallout. And OP replies, I originally mentioned this, but had to delete it due to character count. I don't see or speak to that side of the family very often at all. We see each other maybe once a year, and we don't talk much. Then say fine. You'll give Delilah back when cousin reimburses you for the still continuing expenses that she left you high and dry for. Have an itemized list of her food and shots. She'll obviously renege. Plus pet care. Do some research and find out how much doggy daycare costs for a total of 2 months. Add that to the food and supplies and vet fee bills. If Delilah is her dog, she isn't, that's your dog now, then you've been providing pet care and should be paid for that service, not to mention the training. Poetry up in this biatch says, I think this is an everyone sucks here by the letter of the law, but I'm gonna vote not the arsehole. Delilah is your sister's property legally. She put Delilah in your care with the expectation she'd receive her back when finding a place to live. You've had Delilah for 2 months now and have likely gone through several developmental milestones with her. You've trained her, spent a great deal of your own money on her care and needs, and for all intents and purposes, she is your dog now. My wife is a vet. She sees firsthand how many people abuse and neglect their pets. Your cousin has a track record of returning animals and behaving extremely irresponsibly. There is a high likelihood that, at best, she will simply keep Delilah and provide food and water with little thought for her needs. I would argue that it's more likely she will be neglected and eventually either be returned to the shelter as a much more difficult to adopt out adult dog with all the training you've done long since forgotten, or returned or euthanized at the first hint of any medical issues. So technically you're being an asshole, but at the same time you're doing it for all the right reasons. Thank you, and give Delilah a head scratch from me. And edit, also just to be safe, I would get the dog microchipped and registered to you ASAP. If your county has licensing requirements, typically requires a rabies vaccination, get that done ASAP as well, and establish ownership that way too. And now on to the update. It's been a few days since my original post, but a lot has happened, so I figured I would give an update. First off, I pretty much made this account and posted on a whim, and I was really only expecting a few responses. It's safe to say I was surprised by how much feedback I had gotten. I'm not really familiar with what the typical amount would be here, but I wasn't expecting much. So thank you to every single person who took the time to give me their input, no matter what that was. I really did appreciate it. On to the most important part. I am officially the owner of the dog. To make a long story short, I had a few talks with my cousin regarding all of my concerns, and we both decided that the best option was me becoming the official owner of the dog. She even admitted to me that it took her so long to get back in contact with me because she wasn't sure about taking the dog back in the first place. Imagine my surprise to hear that. So yeah, the dog and I are very happy, and I'll proudly claim my label as an asshole this time round. And yes, I am going to legally be the dog owner, don't worry. I offered to pay my cousin for the adoption fee, but she declined and wouldn't take the money because she said that I had done so much already. My offer will still stand if she changes her mind. Also, in my first post, a lot of people urged me to contact our local shelters and give them information about my cousin. I felt quite stupid reading all those suggestions because it's such a good idea, and I honestly can't believe the thought never crossed my mind before. So thank you to everyone who told me about that. It's getting done ASAP. I know this isn't super interesting or detailed, but I thought giving an update might be nice. Though as I'm typing this, I realize I don't exactly know how these things work. And again, I really just wanted to say thank you to everyone on the original post for all your comments and feedback. There's nothing much else to say here, but it is a happy ending. Thank you all again. Now in the comments, Count Spunkula says, quote, my offer will still stand if she changes her mind. Does she have kids, or a debt, or something like that? Just take the money you said you'd give her, while you're financially comfortable, and put it in a saving for her kids or something. Don't let this open offer for money become a source of tension in the future. Tie up loose ends and be done with this forever. And OP replies, that's a good idea. We are still handling all of the loose ends, so I figured I would keep the offer open until everything was completed and settled, but giving it to our kids in some way is a really good idea. Thank you for that. Yay, happy ending. Given how well that conversation went, I think you might reconsider talking to local shelters about your cousin if you can get through to her by just talking to her. Disagree on this. Just because the cousin gave back this dog does not mean she won't get another. I've rescued too many animals to think otherwise. But yay, OP. And OP says, yeah, I'm definitely tossing that idea around. My conversations with her though weren't very enlightening, as if she had a sudden change of heart. She just couldn't decide if she wanted the dog or not. I'm definitely going to think about it though. And someone replies to that, eye roll. I would just stick to blackballing her from the local shelters. If she wants a pet that bad, she can maybe dog sit for Delilah and actually get a sense of what it means to be a dog caretaker, or maybe try fostering. That's better than full-on taking on a dog and then abandoning it. She didn't even know if she wanted the dog, but lashed out at you for not trusting her with it? She basically got mad that you agreed with her that she sucks as a dog owner. Cousin seems to take significant convincing to do the right thing though, after doing the wrong thing either on impulse or being too much about herself. She wasn't sure about taking the dog back, but then made up her mind enough to get hostile to OP when OP refused, only to get talked around finally. Maybe she'll settle down in time, but that time is not now, and if she doesn't try to get another dog, it won't matter that she's blacklisted. Am I the asshole for not helping my brother after he broke his leg? Okay, so the title makes me sound awful, but hear me out. I've been sick for a month, but no one knows what it is, thankfully not COVID. Basically, I'm in bed, sleeping most of the day, and when I'm not sleeping, I'm exhausted. Walking down one flight of stairs can feel like I've just been rock climbing. I've had blood tests for anything that would match the symptoms, but nothing came up abnormal. My brother, 23 male, broke his leg about a week ago trying to prove that he could jump downstairs. Because his case is urgent, he needs surgery to join a piece of the bone. Most of the focus has been on him, so I'm alone for most of the day, unless I have friends come over to help with catching up on schoolwork. So I've gotten pretty depressed, and that has in turn made me feel worse. The last week since he broke his leg, he's been making a lot of jokes about how I might have cancer/a brain tumor, which has definitely freaked me out. And our parents put it down to him being frustrated. Whenever we're in the same room and exhausted myself, which can include me having to sit down where I am, including on the floor, even if I'm near a chair, he'll ask me to get things for him or clear things for him. Our parents have obviously been doting on him, and they're usually in the room and happy to help him, but he wants me to do it. This can lead to me exhausting myself, getting him things at lunch and being too tired to eat. After a week, I'm just done. I'm avoiding him so I don't have to do things for him, even if it means he has to wait until someone else is free, and I feel like a bit of an asshole because he needs crutches to get around, so he has a harder time than me reaching or opening things. It also sucks that when my friends are over, he interrupts us while we're studying. I have about 2 hours a day of energy to study, and will tease me by insulting me or calling me lazy and saying I'm expendable because I'm the third child, so who cares if it's serious? I've been lectured by our parents and told to be nicer and more considerate, and since I have energy bursts, I'm really not that sick anymore. I feel like I'm in the right not to help him, but it feels a bit like revenge. Am I the asshole? This is just typical brothers being an asshole kind of revenge. It's sad that he's 23 years old and he's still continuing this behavior. My sister cut that out around the time she was like 17 years old because she realized, hey, younger sibling, I'm slowly becoming an adult now. Maybe I should stop being an asshole and just be a normal person for once. I would like to think that most people get out of that stupid bullying phase, but obviously because of r/AmITheA, we see a lot of that never changes. And unfortunately, this is one of those circumstances. This guy just sucks overall, and I'm so sorry that your parents are on his side instead of yours. But I don't think you're the asshole for this. Now in the comments, Tuscany Lovers says, "Sorry OP, your brother and parents are treating you very badly. Using crutches at 24, it's not a big deal. Teasing you that you have brain cancer, on the contrary, is. Stand up for yourself and go see your GP until you figure out what's going on with your lack of energy. Not the arsehole. Yeah, I've been on crutches most of my adult life. Sure, it's inconvenient, but getting lunch isn't a problem. Weird how I managed to live alone, do my own shopping, drive a car, go to school and work, shower, clean the house, make my own food, and even host dinner parties, all while on crutches, but he can't even make toast. He's being a lazy asshole, using the fact that he broke his leg as an excuse to treat you like Cinderella. He's on crutches, not paralyzed from the neck down. Ask him if he wants you to chew his food for him and feed him like a baby bird too. This is ridiculous." Someone else says, "Not the asshole. I think that with all help given to others, it must be done from stable footing. Take the time you need to recover and pitch in at a level that you can manage without kneecapping yourself too much. At the end of the day, it was their mistake jumping. They have crutches to get around, they can manage almost every task, just a bit slower. Nobody dies if you take time for yourself. Try to shut out the feeling of familial obligation. Also, those comments from them tip this to not the arsehole. Had they kept their mouth shut, this would simply be no arseholes here, and some advice for you to enact a bit of self-care." And OP replies, "The problem is, next week I have a day of hospitalization to decide whether I should be hospitalized until they figure out what's wrong and the severity. So if I am hospitalized for more than a day due to the fact that I'm a minor, a parent might have to be with me all day. So there would be a less focus on him, and the least I could do is help so they can focus on work so they don't create a backlog if they do prolong my stay." OP, that is not a problem. Your parents focusing on your well-being rather than work or your brother's broken leg is the minimum they should do. Agreed. Broken legs can be managed. The brother is young and crutches exist for a reason. And now on to the update. So while I doubt anyone wants or needs an update, people were so nice and helpful when I wrote originally that I wanted to update. I ended up being hospitalized for a bit and being given 2 possible diagnoses, and was told just to wait till I get better, though it might take a few months. My issues with my brother and parents were not solved, but honestly I think until I can move out and distance myself / stop being dependent, things aren't going to be better. There's always going to be a clear favorite, and honestly, I'm coming to terms with being okay with that. I've talked with my older sister, and we both kind of agreed that he's burned his bridges, and we need to look out for ourselves more than we look out for him. He was really hurt by the fact that we are way closer and ostracized him a bit, but after he's threatened and cursed at both of us, I'm surprised he didn't see it coming. Plus, our dog now prefers to play with me rather than with my brother, which I know is petty, but it makes me happy, even if it's a cruel happiness that he doesn't get everything he wants, and that there are repercussions to his actions. So I'd say all's well that ends well, even if it's not well and as intended, because I'm looking forward to the future, and planning with friends so I'm out of the house more. And I get to subtly brag I have friends, because he keeps saying I'm a horrible person who manipulates people into being my friend. And since I told them, they've started disliking him too, so I don't feel uncomfortable with him trying to convince my friends they should be his friends and not mine, which is also uncomfortable because age gap. So thanks to the people who commented originally. Without it, I probably wouldn't have pushed so hard to follow my doctor's recommendations and go to the hospital, and I wouldn't have stood up to my family. Now in the comments, Stunning Grocery says, I wanted an update. I'm sorry you live in a toxic household, but at least you have the right mentality for it. Best of luck. And P.S. I wouldn't mind getting an update about your diagnoses either. I'm guessing with the treatment plan of wait and see, your options were viral or autoimmune. I hope it's a virus that you eventually get over and you feel better sometime this year. Him trying to convince your friends to be his friends is just pathetic and laughable. Sorry, but your brother sounds like a loser. Younger friends, especially since OP is female, just sound like him trying to take advantage of someone, especially if the brother likes women, though that could be true with any gender. The dynamics are different. I'm glad OP let her friends know what he is like to her. I'm sorry, what? A grown-ass adult is pestering minors to be his friends over OPs? Did I read that right? And OP replies, unfortunately, yes. This guy is gonna lead a very sad life. Our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for giving away money set aside for my education to my stepsister? My mum passed away when I was 5 years old. She had willed that a certain amount of money to be set aside for my education. It is a good chunk of change. The thing is though, when I did go to college, I got a full-ride scholarship. I really don't need that money. I'm doing a great course from a good college, and I have an offer in hand. Honestly, I'm not very driven by monetary things, so I don't think I'll miss the money anyway. My sister is still in high school, she's doing well, but I don't think that she's going to get scholarships. She's planning on going to community college and then trying transferring into a good school. The problem is that even if she does that, she'll have to take on debt. My parents can't really afford to pay for her college. The pandemic has set them back. I texted her that when she was going to college, I had some money and I would cover some of her money. She was really grateful and we talked after that, and she was really excited at the prospect of applying for her dream college. The trouble started when she talked to our parents, and they found out that it was Mum's money that I was giving her. They don't want me to give the money away. They are arguing that that money was meant for me, and giving it away would be against her wishes. Dad is furious at me, and my stepmom is also reluctant and wants me not to do this. I think for them it feels like betraying Mum's memory. They both used to be really close to her before her death. My sister understands their perspective, and I think she feels hurt. I got her hopes up, and my parents are crushing her hope. I honestly don't get it, but they're making me second guess this. I really don't want to go against my mum's wishes at the same time. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I feel guilty for starting this whole thing. I hurt everyone in the family with this, and I feel like a POS, crap starting drama. Now in the comments, no assholes here. Everyone has someone's best interest at heart, but sit down and have a conversation about it. Explain that this would make you happy if it would, and that it's your money to choose what to do with. I'm kinda stunned. Usually this conversation goes a completely different route. This. OP's money could have been used for a house deposit or a wedding or a business startup, and that's probably where their parents are coming from. OP sounds pretty young, still in college, so the parents are probably thinking they're being a little naive by saying they don't need the money. At least that's my line of thinking. Life after college is stupid expensive. I don't know how much money OP has, but a good compromise would be for OP to cover the tuition, and the sister would have to pay for supplies and living expenses herself. This kind of post is pretty wholesome, a nice deviation from the usual family greed. And OP replies, "Gonna find out soon. Almost done with college. I have seen a few other people call me naive, and I think I will manage, but that's probably my arrogance coming out. I'm totally fine with not giving her money right now and waiting a year or two before giving her the money. It would work for the both of us, and I would have a better understanding of finance. I do think I played this like a fool. I should have just paid her loans out after I got a job and was settled, and used that money to buffer my expenses. Money is fungible. Maybe I am naive after all. Got a bit excited with this one." Helping to pay down her loans is a great compromise, even if you don't pay them completely. Yeah, your offer of helping with student loan payments is the wise move. To be frank, you are entering the job market at a historically awful time. Look up the lifetime earnings of graduates in 08-07. They are permanently lower than people who didn't graduate into a recession economy. When you haven't experienced the pressure of a random expense that stretches your budget to the max, you really aren't qualified to state whether or not you can handle it or not. Keep your money, invest it into some responsible index funds so that when it comes time for your sister to start paying back her debt, you'll be able to help. Also, the old adage of first in, first out applies here. You are the new guy on the team, and not one singular company in the world wouldn't fire you first when it comes time to trim the budget. You are totally expendable for at least the next 3 to 5 years. Your false sense of confidence could really screw you. But also, mad respect for you being so generous and loving. Very few people are. And Dinasha says, no assholes here. They are rightly pointing out the intention of the money from your late mother. But unless there are stipulations to how you must use it, it's your call in the end on whether you use it for yourself or for your stepsister. Just curious, did they explain other than it's going against your late mother's wishes why they're against it? Possibly they may be worried that people saying you have to give up your money for your stepsister leading to bad rumors. Else, why not this alternative? Loan your stepsister the money instead, with her repaying you at an agreed duration and amount, etc. This way you didn't technically give the money away and still help your stepsister at the same time. And now on to the update. I would like to thank all the commenters for knocking some sense into me. I talked to my sister about it and told her that I will help her with paying for college, but with my own money and not my mother's money. I'm planning to set it aside to start a business or whatever else I may need the money for. I really don't know, and it was wiser to save the money and use my income to help when I had a better understanding of adult finances. I finally got a chance to talk to my parents, and I was able to convince them of this plan. They seemed much less concerned about this plan, but I still had to convince them about my financial well-being, and then I asked them why they were so adamant about not using my mum's money. They were being evasive, and I pushed a little, and it seemed my mother didn't want her money to be used for anything to do with my stepsister. I know. But before I could probe further and ask them if they did cheat on Mum, my mum started crying. She was mumbling something, and I didn't hear most of it. The things I did hear didn't make sense. My mum was repeatedly saying she didn't love me, and she didn't let me see her, and she would hate me, and she only loved you. And Dad was consoling her by saying she loved you, again and again. I removed myself from that situation quickly after my brain did recover from the shock. It was heartbreaking to see her like that, and I feel like I don't trust their narrative of what their relationship was like. It wasn't a clean-cut thing that they have presented. I really don't want to assume they were cheating. I know they were cheating. It is the logical explanation, but I don't want to believe it, and my mother knew about it, hated it, and cut off my stepmom. I'm not going to process this. Anyway, I will be paying for my sister's college. Whatever our parents did was not her fault. I'm going to pretend that nothing happened. Now in the comments, I'm very confused and I don't know if it's my bad translation of English. I do not speak it naturally, and what I know is a little more than basic, or the way in which the post is written. You mentioned in the original post that your mother died when you were 5 years old, but here you talk about your mother. Do you call your stepmother Mama? If so, what did they mean when your mother cut your stepmother? Did your dad cheat on your mother with your stepmother? Do you know why she said no? Someone doesn't love her and hates her. Did she mean your sister? The wording or the fact that it is in a language that I speak fluently and that Google Translator is very bad confuses me, and I need answers if possible. It's okay. The post is a bit confusing, yes. She calls her stepmother Mum. When she tried to ask why they think her bio mum wouldn't want the money used for her sister, stepmom kind of implied that bio mum didn't like her. So a logical explanation could be that her dad might have cheated on his first wife with his second. OP didn't want to ask if it's true because she feels that she doesn't want to know since it's all in the past and she loves everyone the same. I hope this helped. And OP adds, I'm sorry, I'm really not used to writing about my mother. The only person who really talked to me about my dead mother is my stepmom, and I always called both of them mum, and it's never been an issue before. It always made sense in the context that we both used to talk about her. It is messing with me here, and I was drunk when I wrote it. Sorry. Honestly, I don't know what happened between all three of my parents. Quote, do you know why she said no? Someone doesn't love her and hates her. Did she mean your sister? I really don't know. She was crying and talking to Dad. I was only able to hear part of it, and I really don't know how to interpret it. I don't think my stepmom was talking about my sister, as my dad's response was that she loved you, which would be a weird thing to say if my stepmom was talking about my sister. And quote, did your dad cheat on your mother with your stepmother? I think they did. Why else would my mother not want to pay for my sister's education? Why would she even think that her money is going to be used for my sister's education? I'm sorry this is confusing, but it is confusing even for me, and I'm trying to wrap my head around this myself. And our next post is titled, Would I be the asshole if I told my coworker I'm keeping the snail I fostered for her daughter? I know, this is probably a stupid thing to care about, but I can't help it. I got attached to the guy. It started back in January 2021. My coworker came to me because she knew that I had experience with exotic pets, fish, various reptiles, etc. Her 18-year-old daughter ran away and moved several states away suddenly and left her snail behind. She asked if I could take care of the thing because she was too busy to remember maintenance, and I said sure. Before she brought him to me, I had a conversation with my coworker. I said, just so we're clear, am I just fostering this snail for your daughter to get back soon, or am I adopting him? Because I will find a way to get attached to the snail, and I want to know where to keep my expectations, haha. And she replies, it's whatever you want it to be. If you'd rather keep him, just keep him. If you want to unload him back when she's back in town, I'll tell her she has to take him back. You can have him. And I reply to that, I'll adopt him then. I've always wanted a pet snail, smiley face. So I get the snail, and it's in poor condition. Hibernating due to poor enclosure conditions, moldy food in his dish, dirt from outside. This is a huge no-no, especially because I don't think it was sterilized first. And lots of hard objects for him to fall on and possibly break his shell. I had an old 10-gallon aquarium, so I bought the appropriate decor and substrate. About $50 worth of decor. I got his temp and humidity up, and he woke up and has been happy ever since. That was all in the beginning of January, like the 5th or something. Last week, my coworker told me her daughter is coming back into town in June, and she wants her snail back. She saw the enclosure I made for him and wants to know what I used so she can do the same for him. I was shocked that she brought it up at all, And this is where I might be the arsehole. I said, I'll just give her the whole enclosure if she wants him back. It was so surprising to me, and in the moment, I thought maybe the right thing to do was give him back. I didn't know what else to say. Now I've been thinking about it, and I don't feel like it's fair to give him back. I was told it was my decision, I could adopt him if I wanted, and now her daughter wants him back now that she's seen he's doing better. I don't know, I just feel weird about it. Maybe my coworker didn't consult with her daughter when she said that I could have him, but I don't know what to do about it. Would I be the asshole if I tell my coworker I'm not giving him back? How do you go about even having a conversation like that, after I knee-jerk reacted and said that I'd give him back? I don't want to cause hostility with my coworker. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I feel like I might be the asshole because I already said I'd give the snail back, and by saying I don't want to give him back, I'm afraid it'll look like I've just changed my mind. In reality, my side of the story is that I adopted a new pet, have had him 4 months, and am now being told that I have to give him back. I'm aware my coworker's daughter might have a different side of the story though, and might have been told something different by her mother. I don't know what the right thing is in this scenario. Now in the comments, not the asshole, but I feel like you've dug yourself a bit of a hole that'll end up with someone being pretty annoyed at you if you don't follow through now. And OP replies, unfortunately, I think you're right. Don't give the snail back. Snails deserve good living conditions too. If the snail was in that condition when you got it, they will go back to mistreating it just as quickly. And it's obvious that she doesn't care about the snail that much if she ran away and just left it without arranging care for it with a friend or something. Don't give the snail back. It was almost dead when you got it, it's gonna die when you give it back. Not the arsehole. Man, it's so sad the snail died over the weekend, winky face. And OP replies, I thought of that. God, I hate that I thought of that. I actually thought of saying my nephews were over and decided to play with the snail in the back garden and lost him, which I feel is better than saying it died. At least it would technically in her mind be lost in paradise. And it's also a half-truth since the nephews are coming over next weekend. But I don't know, would that make me a horrible person? I don't think it would make you a horrible person, especially since you're taking so much better care of it. Although she might see through the lie because it's too convenient. They honestly don't know a lot about snails. How likely is it to actually get lost in your garden? I can't really say if it's better to tell the truth or to lie, since you know your workmate better and can better gauge how she might react. But did she seem invested in the idea of getting the snail back when she first brought it up? Maybe she got in trouble with her daughter and just tried to see if she could get it back from you, but would actually understand if you didn't want to give it back. And OP replies, the way she brought it up was like this over our cubicle walls. Her. So, Anonymous, my daughter is coming back to town in June, and, well, I think she wants her snail back. She wanted to know how you made the enclosure like you did so she can try to make a list and do the same thing. Me. Oh, well, okay, she can just have mine then. Her. Oh, that would be so sweet of you. I honestly didn't think she'd want it back. So she could have just given it away without telling her daughter, or told the daughter that I would take care of it for her while she's gone. I can see it going two ways. 1, she thinks it's totally reasonable for me to want to keep the snail. I've invested time and money, and that was the original plan. Or 2, you're a 30-year-old woman? Why would you keep a pet from an 18-year-old girl? And now on to the update. I wanted to update my first post since so many people seem to be concerned about the snail in question. After reading and replying to as many replies as I could, telling me to be honest with my coworker and not to return the snail, I decided to take that advice and did just that. Yesterday, I spoke with her and explained that the snail was in poor condition when he arrived at my care and how much time, energy, and money I spent to make sure that he was taken care of. I also reminded her of our first conversation where I explicitly asked if this was a temporary adoption or a permanent rehoming, because I would get attached to the snail if given the chance, and she told me it was my choice and ensured me her daughter didn't care. She was super understanding. said that she was actually surprised with my knee-jerk response that I would return the snail without any hesitation, and said she doesn't think her daughter is attached to my snail particularly, just that she wants a pet snail to take care of. So I told her I'd rustle up a spare tank and decor, and make her daughter an awesome enclosure for the next snail, along with a care sheet and a website to research in case she has any questions. My co-worker was pleased with this, and seemed to think that her daughter would be too. Anyway, I know this is probably a dumb problem for most people, but it ended up being a happy ending, and I get to keep taking care of my little guy forever, as well as make sure any future snails in my co-worker's daughter's care end up well taken care of. Thanks to everyone who participated in my last post. I really appreciated all the advice, and it was just the push I needed to have the awkward conversation in the first place. No feelings are hurt, and everything worked out. Now in the comments, people who don't realize how lovable and fascinating snails are missing out on life. We got a fish tank and added a snail to the tank as an afterthought to help keep the algae down, and the snail became our favorite pet in the house. He used to T-bone the catfish when the fish was asleep just for fun. I installed a Buddhist temple and a statue of the Buddha in his tank as a decoration, and his favorite place to perch is on the Buddha's head. If you don't know the story of the Buddha, he once meditated so long, he began to overheat in the midday sun, and snails climbed up to protect him from the heat, martyring themselves in the process. That's why he's always depicted as having bumps on his head. They're snails. Our snail literally reenacts Buddhist scripture every day in his tank. They are the best, and I'm glad you're giving that one a good home. Most animals are lovable and fascinating, except mosquitoes, blood-sucking idiots.